Hey, what's going on, Clipper people? It is me, William the Opinion Updike.
And I am positive Chuck Mockler.
And today here at Locked On Clips, we're talking the freshies. We like to do that every single Monday. This one's going to be all about Norm Powell and the possibility of him playing the point. We're also going to give you some playoff perspective. And of course, we'll have shavings, which is just where we wrap up everything else. So all that and more coming up right about now.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome to the Freshies here on Locked On Clips. Coming at you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday on the Locked On Podcast Network. Kill some windshield time with us. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. They have you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. All right, we're talking Norm Powell. We've kind
Hey,
of...
Norm.
Hey, Norm. We touched on this before earlier in the season when it was only 3 games of a sample size. But now through 5 games, which again, very small sample size, there's this trend that is the seed has been planted, albeit in a weird year with injuries, where he's playing a lot more point guard than he did before. He's played 44% of his minutes at point guard for the Clippers. His career high in percentage of minutes played at point guard in a season was 13 for the Raptors in 1920. So I don't know. I know it's not going to be 44% all of next season for him playing point guard, obviously, but it seems like we might be seeing something where he's going to be over that 13% mark.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I think with the Raptors, a couple of things that are important to consider is like he was kind of like a six man, except for the year after the title year when they had like a bunch of injuries and stuff. I think he ended up getting too many starts to get 6-man votes.
Right.
When he was like otherwise kind of his name would have, kind of been in the mix. But you also had a really strong prototypical point guard there, right? Like in Kyle Lowry.
Sure. Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense in the pecking order that even if you have Kawhi or Pascal or like these other forwards who can handle the ball a little bit, put the ball on the deck, pass the ball, get their own shot, that he would
Much
be
like
playing less point.
Yeah,
exactly. That he would be playing less point. But without like that, I mean, other than Reggie, who is like in terms of like continuity and experience, like the sort of the de facto point guard,
right.
We don't really have a guy. And even Reggie isn't necessarily like the prototypical kind of point guard in the way that someone like, say, a Kyle Lowry is.
Oh, yeah,
right?
that's a good call.
So I think that we could definitely see an increase of that. And it's been one of those things that, like, I guess I've been hesitant to call him the point guard. I think that we will see him in some closing lineups filling that role.
Yeah.
But it is a lot different than his tenure with the Raptors just because you have, you still have Kawhi, but you also add Paul George in there, who has increased so much as a facilitator and sort of place setter for an offense that it kind of makes it can kind of cover up for some of Norm's, like deficiencies in needing to initiate the offense at all times. And you can still have you can still have him on ball and able to do things that he likes to do north-south offensively. You can play him off ball a little bit more where we know that he's an elite like catch and shoot 3 guy.
Right.
Can draw gravity from a defense. So I'm right there with you. I think we definitely see this like sort of percentage of like point guard minutes sort of increased. Although, sort of with the trend with this Clippers team in this current 2-1-3 iteration sort of is like, what is a point guard?
So that's the thing, too. He's almost like a 1.5.
What does a point guard mean?
Yeah. He's not like a true 1, like in like a lineup. It's like he's playing the 1.5. So we have him at the 1.5. We have Terrence Mann at the 6. We're inventing all kinds of new positions.
Yeah, well, and he played against 2 guards in Portland as well,
right?
Who are guards. Like they're not tweeners. Like you could try to in some funky lineup maybe run McCollum at the 3 or something, but like
they're
for all intents and purposes, those guys are guards. They are guards. That's what they are, cut and dry. It's not like the sort of like Swiss Army thing like the Clippers have. So yeah, I think that we could definitely see an increase in that.
And it feels like it's going to be with the small ball lineup. I don't think we'd see like I think that's probably where we'll see Ty mix in these minutes. I mean, the one that everyone wants to see is Norm, PG, Kawhi, RoCo, and Morris. That is like what we all kind of want to see at some point next season.
Yeah, or Batum. You toss Batum in there maybe somewhere. I could also see us going though, like sort of like I don't think it would be our starters, but maybe some variation of like Reggie, Norm, PG, Kawhi, Zoo.
Definitely.
I think could also be. I think could also be pretty interesting, just depending on how you can get the spacing to work out. Because then
that starting lineup, that's
it,
going to be
it just depends on how you can sort of initiate the off-ball offense, based around whoever is doing the primary facilitating.
It's always funny too. I feel like going into the year before this last season, we were like, the offense might start slow, and then that didn't happen at all. The offense kind of came out clicking. So I'm really excited to see what that Reggie, Norm, PG, Kawhi, Zoo lineup can do, because that's just going to be that's going to be a fun time for the LA Clippers. Another fresh thing that happened: the Clips made the re-signing of Robert Covington official on Sunday, so that's good. It's fully done now.
How much does this sort of does this make you feel relieved about the offseason? Because this was probably our biggest target other than Batum opting in, right?
Yeah, this made me feel, I don't know if relieved is the right word, because it felt like they were going to get it done. There didn't seem to be...
It felt inevitable.
Yeah, and it felt in like a nice, boring way. I'm not saying that I called it, or I don't mean anything like that, but it just felt like one of those things where it's like the Clippers have done so much good business that they weren't going to let Robert Covington go after what he did in that short amount of time, I think.
Definitely.
So and hopefully we see the same thing with Hart.
Yes. Yeah. He's less of an inevitability, but I think we've talked about it on this show, for the rigors of a regular season, I do think that it makes sense to keep, a backup center like Isaiah Hartenstein on your payroll.
Yeah.
We can assume the trend, even though we do have more wings now, but we can assume the trend would be similar with how Ty Lue runs those small ball lineups, in that we'll see it kind of sparingly. We'll see it enough to sort of tune them up and kind of get them where they need to be, but it's not going to be something that we're leaning on heavily in the regular season, would be my prediction.
It'll be interesting to see, and this is way fast forward. This is like a calendar year in advance. Because remember, Zoo got played off the floor in his first playoff series with the Clips, and it was bad. And we kind of saw Hart got 6 minutes, 7 minutes in the play-in games. So I'm really excited to see what jump he can make in terms of doing what he needs to do to get playoff minutes. Not that I'm saying he just needs to be on the floor or anything like that, but he does some things that can help us in the half-court offense. It's cool that he has maybe Zoo to talk to about how to do that.
Definitely. And I think playoffs is an entirely different thing, the growth that we see from Hart, assuming that he stays part of this team.
Sure, right,
will give us a much clearer picture as to what that could look like. But for the regular season, I do still think that you need a regular backup center that's a traditional kind of center size, especially in the Western Conference, where I feel like you have, even on second unit, so many kind of large, physically domineering kind of centers. Even on those second units. So I think that, regardless of what his role is come playoff time, it makes a lot of sense for the longevity, especially of some of your older players, but all of your wings in general, to have him on this roster.
100%. Close out, we got some fresh insanity. So
lay it on me, man.
There was a LeBron for PG trade idea floated out. There was Kyrie for Reggie, Norman, Luke. I think at this point I'm putting Malcolm Brogdon in the insane trade category, just because of all his injuries and things like that. But this had me wondering, with this re-signing of RoCo too, who's the most valuable player on the Clippers who could be traded? When you look at RoCo, Morris, Kennard, Terrence, Batum, Zoo, and Brandon Boston. These are the ones that, because Kawhi, Norm, PG, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. I still think in terms of assets, all things considered, because you need salary filler, obviously, if you're making a big swing, or even if you want to make a couple of, rotation guy moves on the margins, salary is going to help. So I still think you're probably looking at Morris and Kennard as the most likely / viable kind of trade pieces. Zoo, it'll depend on if he's an expiring. I think you could very well see that contract moved.
Yeah, we're going to talk his contract later, because I think he's eligible for that this summer.
Yeah, especially if a team is willing to like re-sign him.
Yeah.
Boston is a nice asset. It's just like the salary isn't really there.
He's I think Covington actually, because we can trade his contract now. I think RoCo's up there for the most valuable trade piece we have, because
I think he'll be more so next year when he's like a full expiring.
That's a good call. Yeah.
But
he just does everything, right? Like he's like probably the best of the Batum, Morris, RoCo, like triumphant of veteran wings that we have.
But if you're looking for a guy like RoCo, like you're likely a contender,
exactly.
Right? You know what I mean?
You're not,
and so I
giving us
in that. Yeah, so like I guess in that way, I don't necessarily see him as quite as movable, but I do think the math on that changes on an expiring.
Yeah, for sure. Marcus Morris tweeted out the hands over the face emoji 3 times, so people were freaking out about that, but I think it was just because the Heat were losing. Coming up, we're going to be talking playoff perspective, just kind of where we think the Clips stack up after watching these year's contenders. But first, we got to give a shout out to Bet Online. We talked about them up top. So your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of Major League Baseball. Hope you didn't take the Reds win over. Really hope you didn't take that. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering info, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. I'm currently losing money on the NBA playoffs, which is always a good time. Head to the website today, but it's easy to do. Or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about this team and sort of this year, and I think one thing that has us feeling positive about next season is just we haven't seen like an astronomical jump from any contender of ours in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering for you, like now watching this playoffs, we're in the second round now. Decent chunk of the way into the second round. Has anything changed in your mind? Do any of these teams, of the 4 teams that still remain in the West, have they done anything to make you maybe feel a little bit more afraid or a little less sure of the Clippers' footing in this conference?
It honestly might be the Warriors, because we knew they were good. Okay. I'm not, it's not like it was like, whoa, these Warriors are really good. But they've really, I don't want to say reminded, because everyone still knew they were good, but like we've seen Poole break out. We've seen Steve Kerr be Steve Kerr with his really, just good adjustments and things like that, and taking advantage of different skill sets for these kind of emerging guys. So I think it's the Warriors. I think it's just another one of those things where it's like, shit, like these guys are maybe back with this addition of Poole, if they can really figure this out, to being at that, Western Conference Finals favorite type thing. Whereas, look,
they play a little gritty too, which makes you scared for a team that has its own health issues.
For sure. And then in their series with the Grizzlies, this series is getting really intense.
Yes.
Did you saw the clip of the jaw knee pull where Poole?
Yeah.
So I watched it and I saw it in real time. And it's one of those things that in slow motion I think looks infinitely worse than what happened in real time. I think it's kind of like Taylor Jenkins said that that injury is caused by that play, which I don't know if that's necessarily true. That would be wild if that is what.
He had knee stuff all season, so I don't know.
He's not pulling his knee to the point of I don't know. It's so you're right. The chippiness. It
also a little bit. Yeah, the chippiness is definitely a little bit worrisome, but I also feel like a little bit of this feels like posturing for the Dylan Brooks kind of incident.
Sure, and he did crazy stuff too. He was diving at Poole's knees and all that stuff. So I think the Grizzlies have now become a more annoying opponent. I don't think the Grizzlies have necessarily become they're good, but they've also now become kind of one of these teams that people are starting to turn on pretty quickly. And then I think, I guess I would go. So it's the Warriors, and then I hate to say it, it's the Mavs, man. If they can retain Jalen Brunson and he can keep playing like this, they have that guy next to Luka now. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Who can really
they still feel like
pick up the slack. I guess they've excelled more. They haven't necessarily been the scariest, if that makes sense. They seem to have added an extra part.
What they were able to do last series without Luka, I do think was pretty terrifying. Just looking at, sort of the depth of that team and what they were still able to do without, a guy who's a 30+ point per game scorer. I think that was really impressive. To me, the Mavs become instantly a lot scarier if you add another like really elite two-way wing.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like, oh shit. Okay.
Damn it.
Now,
they have a legitimate roster.
Like now we're like kind of we're really could be in trouble with these guys. But I do think like them tying up this series, it was unexpected for me. We were talking the other day, and after that game 2, I kind of thought like the ceiling for the Mavs was probably 5 games. And now they're at least going to force 6. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm right there with you. Like the Dubs, they will have another year of age on them, but I think that they could beef up.
They draft
down
well
low
too, is the thing. Like that's that's what's shitty.
and they could, it seems like maybe Looney and like that's not maybe necessarily their way forward. So they could kind of bulk up at the 5, sort of get some reinforcements there, and then think they probably needs a better starter than Wiseman, but TBD. Haven't watched him play in a long time. So
fair.
That like sort of prospect to me though of them, finding a sort of elite 5 who can kind of play in that system is definitely a scary prospect. And then the Suns to me are so interesting because we just still don't know what's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton. And I would guess that
they kind of stayed the same for me. Like I'm kind of like still very worried, like still a good team and an elite regular season team. But we don't know what's happening with Ayton. It seems like some of their injury stuff, maybe Booker or CP3 came back a little too quick. But they're kind of in the TBD category.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, it's also weird thing in the Suns Mavs series. Some Mavs fans pushed Chris Paul's mom and wife. Like they got ejected from from the stands, like for like pushing and like putting hands on Chris Paul's wife and mom.
That's wild, man. That's just way too. That's just way too far. That's way too far.
It's absolutely horrible behavior. It's the most. You're touching other people that are like, it's just so it's just gross. And the thing about all these contenders is that other than we've obviously done battle with the Mavs before, but we've come out on top in the playoffs. We match up well against the Suns, even though we lost. We still took them to 6, all that, even though it is a bit of a different team. The Clippers match up really well with all these teams. Like Ja Morant's going to be an issue, but he's an issue for everybody, right? Like he scored 47 the other day. So that's what makes me excited about, kind of touching off the thing we talked about in the first segment with RoCo is like, we have that defensive piece back. Like we had that was our most important defensive signing to make. And we got it back. And he's one of those guys with our giant wings that help against kind of all 4 of these Western Conference contenders.
Yeah. I mean, with RoCo returning, you can throw out an all wings 5.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it would be successful, but it is the possibility is there.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And then are there any East teams that worry us, or do we not care at this point? And that's just something to worry about when we get to the finals.
I think it's something we got to worry about when we get to the finals.
Yeah.
I mean,
personnel wise, the Heat matchup is pretty crazy. Like how the teams are constructed. Same with the Celtics. It's always like looking in the mirror when we play the Celtics.
Definitely. The Bucks. I mean, the Bucks have had our number throughout the regular season for so long.
Well, not this season. Put up a franchise high on them this year in a game that was, everyone who was healthy could have played. So very legitimate game. And then the 76ers, I think we just have an advantage over because Ty Lue is a better coach than Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it just boils down to that. Let us know what you think about this over at Locked On Clips. Coming up, we're going to be talking Zoo's option potentially, and then just a friendly reminder about how good Kawhi Leonard is. But first, Will, if I wanted to enjoy a protein bar, what kind of protein bar should I check out?
You should check out Built Bar. Look, Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the market. If you listen to the show, we talk about it all the time. What you might not know is that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors. There's truly something for everyone. It's really cool. When you talk to other Built Bar fans, they're definitely passionate about their favorites.
Yep.
If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, you're missing out. They got coconut, cherry, barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange cookies, and cream and German chocolate. Ooh, yummy. If you haven't tried all the flavors yet, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. And now they also have the Puffs, which is the first ever protein-infused marshmallow.
Sick.
They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Not just a protein bar, a protein treat that comes in churro, coconut, and banana cream pie. Ooh, yummy. Look, I keep going on and on about flavors and the taste, but not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, these bars are healthy too. Check out these macros. Each bar has 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from a meager 130 to a very small 180, only 4 to 5 grams sugar and only 4 to 5 grams net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. And right now, we have a very special offer. If you go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
All right, welcome to Shavings, where we're talking just a bunch of random Clipper stuff. Kind of a lot of the episodes in the offseason are basically all shavings because there's not a lot to talk about. Talking Zoo's option. When do we think they exercise Zoo's option? And he's eligible for a 4-year, $61 million extension this summer, which would be have him making more than guys like Jakob Poeltl, Christian Wood, Valanciunas, and Rashawn Holmes. I'm not sure I want the 4 for 61, but I'm also not sure that Zoo thinks he's going to be getting 4 for 61. If that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I mean, 4 for 61 isn't crazy. Like a hair over 15 a year, I think it would be pretty easy for Zoo to command that in the open marketplace.
What do you think his ceiling
sub 20?
is?
I still think it's sub 20.
I think this is his ceiling. I think 4 for 61 is like pretty right there.
I think it would depend on the makeup of the team. But,
Yeah.
I mean, like his defensive skill set is solid. And just depending on how you work your offense, like if you can get him to a place where, you can rely on him for a few buckets like we were able to do during stretches of this season,
Sure.
though not consistently.
Yeah, right. But he's never been asked to do that consistently.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that like him being a more a larger pillar of your offense is the recipe for successful basketball.
But he could be a third option or something like that. Like,
yeah, I think on the open market there are people who will have interest, especially if he's under a number, like a Clint Capella or John Collins or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I
want to see Clippers Twitter if he gets 4 for 61 because people would lose their damn minds. Carl Tart would be furious if this contract happened.
But like, it doesn't feel exorbitant, right? Especially like, I don't know, if you compare it to other even 4 for 60 guys on the Clippers, like Luke Kennard, obviously a better offensive piece. Zoo is a better two-way player.
I don't think
if you look at somebody like Morris, I mean, on no universe is Zoo ever going to have those type of offensive highs. But what you're getting consistently defensively, or just consistently in general, like knowing
availability,
what get on a night-to-night basis,
and he does not miss games.
Yeah, I do think that there is something to that. Do I think that this is on the high end? Yes. Do I see this being something that we would offer? I don't know, man. It still seems a little high, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think people thought the Luke Kennard contract was high when it first happened. That was almost kind of a shock just because it happened before he even played. So like that was a bit of a different thing too. Speaking of the Luke Kennard contract, a lot of people have been talking about how Duncan Robinson just has been getting DNPs despite having a great contract. And I think the Duncan Robinson contract makes the Luke Kennard contract look great. If anyone's still upset about the Luke Kennard contract, because the scuttlebutt was before he got hurt, Luke was going to be pretty important for these play-in games. Everything that we heard, which I was wrong about, because we just didn't know. But yeah, just nice to see that he would not be getting DNPs. We'll update you on the Clips and the Zubats contract situation. Hopefully he just opts in. Your friendly reminder that in Kawhi's last playoffs, he averaged 30 points, just under 8 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, shooting 57% from the field, 39% from 3, 88% from the line, and he had just under a 68% true shooting percentage. God damn, it's going to be great when Kawhi Leonard can play basketball again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that true shooting percentage, it's like he's a center out there, but he's a perimeter player.
It's insane.
It's wild. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. What we saw, man, just the way this team was finally all starting to click together and come together. Before, a certain Australian tossed a wrench in that whole thing. Really impressive. If he can get to, if he can even be sniffing like this kind of performance, I think with the growth that we've seen across the depth of our roster.
Yeah, the help that Norm Powell brings for stretches and things like that. Like, it's gonna be
you're looking at a very dangerous team.
Yeah. And then finally close out the Monday episode. This is actually going to be, I think we have to tell them, this is our last week as hosts on Locked On Clippers.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're taking a bit of a break. We're coming back with a 3-day-a-week show called Clips and Dip over on the 213 network. Go follow @ClippersPod for all that. But yeah, this is our final week. It's been a crazy, absolutely insane run. I'm sure we'll say more about this on Friday, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we're so thankful to everybody who's like stuck with us from the infancy of like when this show started. And we would have to be like quiet in a secret office,
recording in the office
and doing work. And I mean, we're just like so thankful to get to bring you guys like Clippers news 5 days a week. And we're not done. Like, we're continuing. We're just kind of shifting away from the current network and looking to do something a little bit different, looking to do something a little bit more like that's kind of on our terms and like by the fans for the fans.
Yeah.
So hopefully if you listen to this podcast, you'll stay rocking with us. Because we're nowhere near close to done. This team has a lot to do, and we have a lot to do as podcasters. So thanks.
It's gonna be a good time. We want to thank the network too. We've got to go into a locker room, got to have access, which has been great. But that being said, we still got 4 more episodes to do for y'all. Tuesday's episode, we got Twitter Tuesday, so send your questions into @LockedOnClips. We're gonna be talking whatever else happens between now and then in Clipperland. Will, if people wanted to review this podcast, where could they possibly do that?
So you could review this podcast over on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app on your mobile device. You can also do it on Spotify, on any of your devices. You can listen to us on either one of those platforms. We're also on Google Podcasts. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to this show. Please check out @ClippersPod on Twitter to stay abreast of where we'll be and what's next for Chuck and Will here and our coverage of the Clippers. So, thanks for rocking with us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I have been Positive Chuck Mockler.
And I am William the Opinion Updike. And as always, we appreciate you.